Oh. What's up, everyone? This is Thomas with Keller Williams here in St. Augustine, and today we're here for you guys, the viewers, for any questions that you guys might have about living in St. Augustine, moving to Jacksonville, moving to Palm Coast, and just the entire area in general. Of course, you know, as I normally do, I have some news stories that I'm going to cover, and I'm going to keep up to date as we've been going over these past couple of months. But the main purpose of this live stream right here is for you guys to ask the questions that you need to ask, because I guarantee there is someone that has the same exact question that you have that is afraid to ask it. So go ahead and ask them below. If you are tuning in with us today, the first question I do have for you, which I'm going to put up here on the banner, is going to be, where are you joining from today? You know, are you coming from California, in Alaska? I'd really like to know. Just leave me a comment below. I'd love to know where you're joining from today. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to cover today is going to be, I'm going to change the format here. First thing we're going to cover today is we're going to go over here and we're going to take a look over here. New workforce housing development approved in St. Johns County. You know, I've covered that in the past. There have been a couple of attempts to add some workforce housing here in the area, and they've been kind of looked down upon by the local population. For what reason, I'm not entirely sure. It kind of gives me that not in my backyard type of feel, because really in today's world, workforce housing is needed. So this news story just came out the other day where they're talking about adding 500 new workforce housing units here in St. Johns County. And honestly, I mean, that's like nothing. 500 housing units is literally not going to satiate the people, the population of people that need that housing. We're talking about that price point being under $240,000. And I mean, I just have a really hard time seeing, unless they're like subsidizing it in some type of way, how they're going to be able to meet that goal with the cost of land and also with inflation, the cost of lumber, labor, and the rest of the material included in building a house. So they're talking about adding 500 more houses that are affordable within St. Johns County. Now, $240,000, I mean, that is still a really great price point. Don't get me wrong, that is affordable to a lot of people. Though I'm not sure if it's necessarily going to make the dent or have the effect that the county wants it to have. I mean, and really, let's just future pace it. We're having a hard time building houses right now for people that have good money. You're talking $500,000 houses taking a year. So if we're going to say down here at this the lower end of the barrel in terms of prices, that $200,000 or $300,000 range where they're building new houses, are they going to be a priority? And also, how long is that going to take? So we have a problem of housing right now for everyone. But on top of that, we also have a problem for people who live here and can't afford to live here anymore because of the price increases in rent, as well as, food, gas, all of that other stuff that's going on with inflation. But also buying a home too has become a lot more expensive than it was several years ago, where our average price point was about $250,000 since that recession in 2008. So when you're looking at this here, it just doesn't seem like that is really going to that's really going to be able to make a big difference in what's happening in our local market here. So let's say that they start and they work right away and they get these houses up. I mean, a year from now, are they going to be saying that they're going to sell them for $240,000? I'm honestly really skeptical of that. But on top of that, it's going to be a year and some change from now. So we're going to be even such a further hole where we're going to need more housing, and that we're not going to be able to satiate that need. So this just to me seems like a PR kind of thing for St. Johns County. Like, hey, we're doing something, but it's like putting a Band-Aid on like your arm being ripped off. Like, it's not doing much. You got blood gushing out. You got to do something. But this just doesn't seem like the way for me. I don't know. If you have any different opinions, go ahead and let me know below. I'd love to know what you guys think about affordable housing crisis. There is another article as well, which I'll cover at the end here, about they're also trying to make the housing lots smaller so that they can put more houses on more lots, opposed to having wider lots where you're really not utilizing as much space as you can. So let's go to the next news article. Okay, we'll leave that here. Boom. And the next one is going to be a big deal, and I'm sure you've heard it on the news, which is, I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Whoops. Oh, I am. Huh. I'm sorry, guys. I'm still figuring this out. I'm not the best at this. Okay. So the next news story is that a closer look at Florida's property insurance claims and crisis. So they want to have a special issue by the end of May because hurricane season is going to start right after that, because homeowner insurance premiums have gone up here pretty significantly in the past year. Now, Florida has always kind of been a weird place for homeowners insurance because a lot of it is subsidized because of the flood zones that are in the area. Now, what's happened here in the past couple years is apparently, allegedly, that roofers would come by your house, and they'd do a diagnostic of your house, and they say, hey, I can get you a brand new roof for your deductible. So that's kind of what happened. A lot of people are getting brand new roofs for just paying their deductible, so it's $500 or $1,000, and they're relating it to hurricane damage, so they have to have that covered under their insurance. Some would call that insurance fraud. Some would say that's exactly the reason that they pay insurance. Who knows what's the real story? It's individual for each homeowner, but that's the real problem that they're having here in Florida, but also in St. Johns County, Duval County. This one is actually in Jacksonville. So you're looking right here, my rates went up 50%. It's due again in July. So I wonder if my premium will rise again. Another customer says, my premiums went from $2,300 a year to more than $9,200 annually. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to create some legislature that will allow them to make some changes so that other insurance companies, this is not working for me. Okay, I think I got it. Sorry, that other insurance companies will come into the state and offer insurance, because a lot of insurance companies have just left. Like, you really can't get an insurance policy on your home from State Farm here. It's much more difficult than you think. People are like, well, why is that? I don't know the ins and outs of it 100%. I really think it's more or less about liability and them not wanting to deal with it. And it's a lot more complicated when you bring in the flood zones as well. So you have a lot more smaller insurance companies that handle a lot of the premiums and the packages that you get here. So super important to know. And we are seeing some changes here. So who's to know what happened? Who's to know what was the right thing? But they are trying to put some legislature in effect so that they can make some changes in the future and hopefully bring down that insurance premium, so that it makes it a little bit more affordable for the people who are getting their premiums jacked up like crazy. All right, so we are going to the next article here. I'm going to share my screen one more time. Give me a second. Boom. All right. And this one is obviously everyone's worst nightmare when they're talking about moving to Florida. They don't know anything about the area. This Palm Coast gator gets a new home after showing up at an apartment door. So it was at an apartment door in an apartment complex in Town Center in Palm Coast. It was a 6-foot alligator. Let's see if they got a picture here. There you go. Look at it. Right up on the front door. And could you imagine coming out of your house and then the first thing you see is that front door and you see an alligator? I would freak out. Are you kidding me? That would be crazy. But I mean, that is something that can possibly happen here in Florida. We do have alligators here. And depends on the season, but a lot of the times they will get closer to homes when it's cold. I've heard, actually, my buddy lives in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and he was saying that there was an advisory put out there when it was cold that alligators like to get under the cars, because when they go under the cars, they get the heat from the engine and everything, especially when it's cold out. So it was like, oh my God, I couldn't even imagine going out and then like an alligator bites my leg off. But that is something that's happened here in Palm Coast. That alligator was relocated, so no worries. Alligator's fine. Humans are fine. Everyone's okay. But it is something that if you are thinking about moving to Florida, it is something, it does happen here. So there are alligators, there are bugs, snakes. We got lizards like crazy. So just got to be aware of that. Let's see. I got a comment here. Let's go. Okay. Gold Star. I feel the market is slowing down. What do you think? So Gold Star, I'd really like to know where you're from, because that is going to be a big determining factor of your market and why it's slowing down or speeding up. Now, of course, we've all heard about these interest rates that have gone crazy in these past couple months, really making a huge difference in affordability for a lot of people. In that $300,000 to $500,000 range, that's going to be the most competitive buying market, really pretty much across the United States, because that's where most of the homes lie, right? So you're gonna have that lower end of 300 and then up to 500, and then after that, you're kind of getting more in the not necessarily luxury space, but it's a different type of buyer past that. So I would say that interest rates have changed things, but they haven't changed things here in St. Augustine. Our market is still as competitive as ever. It's still moving. And that's one thing to know, and you guys have heard me say it before, is that 1 out of every 4 offers is cash, and 1 out of every 3 offers is someone relocating here to the area. So those interest rates don't affect those people. And if you're still looking to move to another area, the interest rate's not going to change, and if you're looking at the historical rate of interest rates, yeah, they're high comparatively to the COVID interest rates of 2.5%, 3.5%. Those were great. I don't think we'll ever see those again in my lifetime, at least. But now we're looking at interest rates at 5.5%, 4.5%, whatever that is, depending on the day. That's actually still a really great interest rate. So if people that are on the fence about it, they're just really having that FOMO, that fear of missing out, because they didn't get that 2.5%, 3.5% interest rate. So, I mean, that the only reason that was there is because of what happened with COVID. Now, if that wasn't there, we'd probably still be in the 4.5%, 5% interest rate. And you can go back on like my Instagram years ago, where I'm like, guys, buy a house today because 4.5%, 5% interest rate. This is crazy. So it's still a great interest rate, and that's something to be aware of. But I do not feel like the market is slowing down here in St. Augustine. I feel like, especially since we're going into summer season, it's picking up for me. A lot of people are getting that freedom for summer, so they're able to move a little bit freely and come down here. So they're taking a little bit of vacation, come to see where they might want to live. I don't see a slowdown. I have talked to friends, other realtors that work across the country, whether that's in California or Michigan or Washington, and some of them are saying that they are feeling a slowdown, but their market is different than ours. So the slowdown is going to be market specific, and you need to be aware of that. Right now here in Florida, we have 40% of the people moving here, they're retiring. So that is a large population of people that typically retiring people have a good bit of money. They either have money in cash reserves, or they have money in an investment they've had for their entire life, and they're ready to cash out, or they're selling a property up north or in California and they're coming down here with cash in hand. So as of right now, no, I do not believe that the market is slowing down. But Gold Star, I really appreciate the question. Any other questions, go ahead and leave them below. And we'll go back. We're heading back here. We're going to more important news. All right. The next news story is something that I touched on a little bit earlier. And I'm going to share my screen here. Now, the next news story that we're going to cover is that developers want to build closer together to manage St. Johns County growth. Residents have other ideas. So, I mean, this pretty much, the headline goes without saying that people, they don't want homes to be closer together. If you're coming to Florida, your idea is that you're going to be able to buy your single family home, and you're not going to have to be 10 feet from your neighbor. And that's kind of the idea. A lot of people like that about Florida. If I had someone that's moving from Queens, he's looking to buy $1 million house, and he was looking at Nocatee, and he's like, listen, I'm from Queens. I live close to my neighbor as it is. He's like, I own a single family home here, but if you know what Queens, what New York is like, it's very, very high density in terms of the population, and also in terms of the building. So the building codes allow you to build up right next to people. So you could hand a cup of sugar over to your neighbor. And honestly, that's kind of what the feel is in Nocatee anymore, especially in all the new builds, because their lots are at minimum, I think, 40 feet wide, and then they're allowed to build a house 30 feet. So they have 5 feet on either side. Really, there's 10 feet between your neighbor and your house. So It's not that much that you have between. But the one benefit I will say is that most of the properties are long. So it's a 40 by 125 long property. So most of the houses, their frontage is small, but they're much more long than they are wide. So you do have that little bit of difference. But I still understand it. I mean, you're coming from Queens, you're coming from another area where it's like, hey, I kind of want to get out of this vibe and I want to go somewhere else. And now here in St. Johns County, we're having the same problems. There's so many people moving here. They're wondering, like, okay, so we can only build, if we're not building up, then we can only build closer, left and right. So that's really the only thing, other possibility they have here. So I don't know what the right thing is to do. I think we need more high density homes in the area. So whether that's a multifamily property, maybe that is a condo building or a condo development, something like that could really help out the area. And we could have a range of things. It could be in the lower end, because there's condos on St. Augustine Beach right now you can buy for $200,000. They're smaller, there might be 800 square feet, but that's a condo for $200,000. That's affordable in my opinion. So a lot of people, they're looking for more land, and that's why these developers are going to get this pushback. Because that's when you move into Florida, you're kind of thinking like, hey, I want to get a little piece of my chunk of the pie, and I kind of want to be a little bit away from neighbors. So we'll skip on over the next one here. Okay, so this is something that we talked about the other week, and if you've been following what I've been covering here in these live streams, a major thing is that school zones are changing. Our population of our schools are growing, and that's because we have so many people moving to the area, deciding that northeastern Florida is the place for them to live. It's it's the weather, you got the best schools. Not only do people see that, but it's changing things here. So I covered it in my video last week, St. Augustine versus Jacksonville. St. Johns County, I brag about it all the time, went from the #1 school district, we're now #2. So we were #1 school district for like 10 years in a row. So being #2 is not so bad. You got to give up the crown once in a while, but you can see the effects of everyone moving here, the population growth that is changing things. So that's a slight change. You're being #1 and #2, I think out of like 65 districts, it's, still being #2 is really, really great. They're in a school district, but things are changing. So the other week we covered about the St. Johns County School Board approving attendance zone changes. So this is where Rivertown didn't want to have their community broken up. Well, in today's world, they have that going on. It's been approved, and they don't really care what the people, the parents of Rivertown have to say, because eventually that it will be back in one group whenever they build that additional school. Now that additional school, just the bids for it were actually too high, so the county told the contractors to come back with another bid. Who knows what happens there? That school is a year and a half out. It's already got delays and everything. It could be costing more money. It could be a couple years out. So these parents who want their kids to stay together in the same school district, they're now going to have them go to a different school district, and then they're going to have to switch back over to this other school district when that new school is built. So I could totally understand the frustration by the parents, but I know St. Johns County is doing the best that they can with trying to, try to school all these kids with the schools, because they're in the northwestern part of St. Johns County. I've seen reports of schools being at 150% capacity. So, I imagine that they're still getting really good education, because the student to teacher ratio is never above like 20-1. So even if it's at 150% capacity, what is that? Let's just say it's like 25-1 or 30-1. That's still a pretty good ratio for a teacher, I think, but I could be 100% wrong. If I am, let me know in the comments. But yeah, I think that's something to be on the lookout for, because that's going to happen here, I think, throughout a couple of different school zones, because they're building 4 schools over the next 5 years. So the shuffling around of kids, the figuring it out of where these kids are going to go to school, whichever is going to be best for the county and for the kids themselves, we're going to see some more of that, I think. I don't think this is the first change. So that's going to be something that we're going to look out for in the future, and I'll keep up on the live streams for sure. I'm running out of stuff to talk about here, guys. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave me a comment below. Like I said, this is for you guys here. If you have any solid questions about moving to the area, living in Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Palm Coast, I'm doing these live streams just so I can get in front of you guys and talk it out. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll answer them. If I don't see them, maybe you're watching this past another time, I'm going to make another video where I answer everyone's questions about comments I get. So either way, I appreciate you being here. Let's see here. All right. Well, it looks like no one else is leaving some comments here, guys. So I appreciate your time here today. I'm going to wrap it up. Like I said before, if any additional questions, leave them below. Reach out to me directly, whether it's a call, text, or email. I'm here for you. Yeah, and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it.